The slap came so suddenly that Maya didn't register the pain at first, just the sound, a sharp crack that echoed through their living room and seemed to freeze time itself. Her cheek burned, her vision blurred. She stood there, one hand slowly rising to touch the spot where his palm had connected with her face, and looked at Lucas, really looked at him. The man she had married, the man she had chosen despite every warning sign, now stood before her with his chest heaving, his eyes wild with something she couldn't name: rage, guilt, fear, maybe all three. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came. And then, just like that, he grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the wedding photo on the wall tilted sideways. Maya stood alone in the silence that followed, her hand still pressed against her burning cheek, and wondered how she had gotten here, how love had turned into this, how the man who once saved her from spilled coffee had become someone who would raise his hand to her in anger. But to understand that moment, to truly understand how everything fell apart, you would have to go back, back to the beginning, back to the day she met him, back to when everything seemed possible, and love felt like the answer to every question she had ever asked. It had been one of those ordinary Tuesday afternoons that somehow becomes extraordinary. Maya had been rushing through downtown, late for a meeting with a potential client, her arms full of portfolio samples and her mind racing through the presentation she had rehearsed a dozen times. She hadn't been paying attention, not really. And that's when it happened. A cyclist swerved to avoid a taxi. The cyclist crashed into a sidewalk cafe table. The table tipped, and suddenly scalding hot coffee was airborne, headed straight for Maya's white blouse and exposed arms. She had barely registered what was happening when someone grabbed her, pulling her back so forcefully that her portfolio went flying, papers scattering across the wet pavement like confused birds. The coffee splashed harmlessly onto the concrete where she had been standing just a second before. For a moment, Maya couldn't breathe. The shock of being grabbed, of nearly being burned, of her important documents now scattered and wet, all hit her at once. Her rescuer was tall, with dark hair that fell slightly over his eyes and a smile that seemed to apologize and charm all at once. He told her he was so sorry for the rough save. He asked if she was okay. His hands were still on her shoulders, steadying her, and Maya found herself staring into eyes that were an unusual shade of amber, like honey held up to sunlight. His concern seemed genuine, his touch warm but not invasive. She told him she was fine. Better than fine, actually, considering she had almost been wearing that coffee. They both laughed, and it was the kind of laughter that breaks tension and builds connection simultaneously. He helped her gather her scattered papers, making jokes about interpretive art on wet pavement. Most of her samples were ruined, the ink bleeding into abstract patterns. He asked her about her work. She explained she was a freelance graphic designer, rushing to pitch a branding project for a new restaurant. He seemed genuinely interested, asking questions that showed he was actually listening, not just waiting for his turn to talk. He told her his name was Lucas Mercer and insisted on buying her a replacement coffee to make up for the one that had almost scalded her. Maya checked her watch. She had already missed her meeting window. There was no point rushing now. She might as well salvage something good from this disaster. They sat at the same cafe where the chaos had started, and what was meant to be a quick coffee turned into an hour-long conversation. Lucas told her he worked in real estate investment, buying and flipping properties across the city. He made it sound exciting and risky and rewarding all at once. He talked about the thrill of seeing potential where others saw decay, about transforming forgotten buildings into homes where people would build their lives. The way he spoke, with such passion and conviction, made even the most mundane details interesting. He asked about her childhood. She told him about growing up in a quiet suburb with parents who were kind but emotionally distant. About teaching herself graphic design in high school, because art class was the only place she felt truly herself. About the slow, painful process of building a freelance career in a city that didn't care if you succeeded or failed. Lucas listened with an intensity that made her feel like the most fascinating person in the world. Before she knew it, 2 hours had passed. Her phone buzzed with an apologetic message from her would-be client, asking to reschedule. Maya felt a strange sense of relief. If she had made that meeting, she never would have had this conversation, never would have met this man who seemed to see something in her that others missed. When Lucas asked for her number, she gave it without hesitation. When he asked if she wanted to have dinner that Friday, she said yes before her cautious brain could talk her out of it. Their first date was everything Maya had hoped for and more. Lucas took her to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city where the lights twinkled like earthbound stars. He was charming and attentive, asking about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. He told her she had the most expressive eyes he had ever seen. He said he could tell exactly what she was thinking just by looking at her. At the time, it felt romantic. Later, she would realize it had been a warning, that his ability to read her made it easier for him to manipulate her. But on that first date, everything felt perfect. Lucas paid for dinner without making a show of it. He walked her to her car and kissed her cheek, not her lips, respecting boundaries she hadn't even thought to set. He texted her when he got home to make sure she had arrived safely. Every gesture felt considerate. Every word felt genuine. The early weeks of their relationship felt like falling, like surrendering to gravity and trusting the landing would be soft. Lucas would show up at her apartment with flowers for no reason. He would text her good morning before she was even awake. He would plan elaborate weekend getaways to small coastal towns where they walked on beaches and talked about everything and nothing. Maya felt seen, cherished. For the first time in her life, she felt like someone's priority. Her friends loved him, her parents approved of him. Even her younger sister, notoriously skeptical of Maya's dating choices, admitted that Lucas seemed different, special, like someone who might actually stick around. Maya let herself believe it, let herself imagine a future where this feeling never faded. But there were moments, small ones at first, easy to dismiss, easy to rationalize, warning signs that Maya would later look back on with bitter clarity. Like the time they went to dinner at a trendy Italian place downtown. Their waitress was young and pretty, with long blonde hair and a bright smile. Lucas had chatted with her for what felt like too long, asking about her day, complimenting her earrings, laughing at something she said that wasn't particularly funny. The waitress seemed flattered, leaning in close when she refilled his water, touching his shoulder when she brought the check. When Maya mentioned it later in the car, Lucas had looked genuinely confused. He told her he was just being friendly. He said she was reading too much into innocent conversation. He asked if she was really going to let jealousy ruin a perfectly nice year. Maya had felt foolish for bringing it up. Small, like her feelings were an overreaction to nothing. Or the way Lucas kept his phone face down whenever they were together. How he would step into another room to take certain calls. How his screen was always angled away from her, even when they were lying in bed together, even when she wasn't trying to look. When she asked about it once, casually, trying not to sound accusatory, he had gotten defensive. He said everyone deserved privacy. He asked if she didn't trust him. He turned it around so smoothly that suddenly Maya was the one apologizing, reassuring him that of course she trusted him, that she hadn't meant to imply otherwise. There was also the night he canceled their dinner plans last minute, claiming a work emergency. A potential investor needed to see a property immediately, and Lucas had to be there. Maya had been disappointed but understanding. Real estate deals could be unpredictable, time-sensitive. She had eaten leftover pasta alone and watched a movie she couldn't focus on. But when she saw his Instagram story the next morning, there he was at some bar with friends she didn't recognize, his arm around someone whose face was conveniently cut off from the frame. When she asked about it, he had laughed it off. He told her the work thing had finished early and his buddy had dragged him out for a quick drink to decompress. He said he hadn't wanted to bother her since she was probably already eating something else. It almost made sense. Almost. But the knot in Maya's stomach didn't quite loosen. And then there was the woman in the grocery store. 3 months into their relationship, Maya and Lucas had been shopping together on a lazy Sunday afternoon, one of those mundane couple activities that somehow feels intimate. They were debating pasta shapes, with Lucas insisting penne was superior while Maya defended rigatoni, when a woman approached them, tall, brunette, confident in the way that comes from knowing you're attractive. She had called Lucas by name with a familiarity that made Maya's stomach tighten. The woman told him it was so good to see him. She touched his arm. She called him babe, and it wasn't a slip. It was natural, practiced, like she had said it 100 times before. Lucas had gone pale, just for a second. Then he recovered, laughing awkwardly, introducing the woman as Stephanie, an old colleague from his previous firm. The woman, Stephanie, had looked confused. She had glanced at Maya, then back at Lucas, and something unspoken passed between them. A moment of recognition, of understanding. Then Stephanie excused herself quickly, saying she was running late. As she walked away, Maya watched Lucas watch her go, and the expression on his face was something she couldn't quite name. Longing, regret, something that definitely wasn't the look of someone seeing an old colleague. She asked him about it in the car. He told her Stephanie was just weird and overly familiar with everyone at the office. He said she had probably been joking with the babe comment, that she called everyone that. He reminded Maya that some people just had strange boundaries. And then he changed the subject so smoothly, so effortlessly, that Maya found herself talking about weekend plans instead of pressing further. Later, she would hate herself for letting it go so easily, for choosing to believe the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. These moments collected like debris in still water, visible but easy to ignore if you didn't look too closely. Maya told herself she was being paranoid. She told herself that every relationship had rough patches, that no one was perfect, that love meant choosing to see the best in someone even when doubts crept in. Her mother had always said that relationships required work, that the initial butterflies faded for everyone, that what mattered was commitment. So Maya committed. She pushed down her doubts. She chose trust over suspicion. She chose love over fear. 6 months after that coffee shop rescue, Lucas proposed. It wasn't elaborate or public, which Maya appreciated. It was just the two of them on her apartment balcony at sunset, the city sprawling below them in a wash of orange and gold. He had gotten down on one knee with a ring that was both beautiful and somehow exactly right. Not too flashy, not too simple. He told her she was his everything. He said he couldn't imagine his life without her. He promised to love her completely, faithfully, forever. He said she had changed him, made him want to be a better man. Maya said yes through happy tears, and in that moment, she believed every single word. She had to believe them, because the alternative, that she was making a terrible mistake, was too frightening to consider. Her friends threw her an engagement party. Her parents cried happy tears. Her sister helped her pick out a wedding dress. The world seemed to affirm that this was right, that Lucas was right, that Maya was lucky to have found someone who loved her so publicly, so demonstratively. And if tiny voices of doubt whispered in the back of her mind during quiet moments, Maya silenced them. She was getting married. This was supposed to be the happiest time of her life. She wouldn't let paranoia ruin it. The wedding planning was mostly joyful. Maya threw herself into it, choosing flowers and cake flavors and seating arrangements. Lucas was less involved, claiming work kept him too busy to worry about centerpiece options. Maya told herself it was fine, traditional even. But sometimes, late at night, she wondered why he didn't seem more excited, why he never wanted to talk about their future beyond the wedding day itself, why conversations about having children or buying a house together always seemed to make him uncomfortable, evasive. The wedding itself was small but perfect. 60 guests in a garden venue with string lights and wildflowers. Maya wore a simple lace dress that made her feel like the best version of herself. Lucas wore a navy suit and cried when she walked down the aisle, which made everyone else cry too. They exchanged vows they had written themselves. Maya promised to love him in sickness and health, in joy and sorrow, to be his partner and his best friend. Lucas promised honesty, patience, unwavering support. He promised to choose her every day for the rest of his life. His voice cracked with emotion, and Maya's heart swelled. This was real. This was happening. She was marrying the man who had saved her from spilled coffee and changed her life. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Greece, Santorini sunsets and Mykonos beaches. They drank wine and ate too much bread and made love with the windows open so they could hear the sea. Lucas was attentive and present in a way that erased all of Maya's lingering doubts. He held her hand constantly. He took photos of her laughing. He made plans for their future, talking about the home they would buy, the life they would build. Maya thought maybe marriage had changed him. Maybe commitment had made him realize what he had. Maybe this was their fresh start, and everything before had just been growing pains. They returned home to their newly shared apartment, walls still bare, boxes still unpacked. Real life awaited, and with it the slow unraveling of everything Maya thought she knew. It started subtly. Lucas began coming home later. He said work was demanding, that he was closing several big deals that required evening meetings and weekend site visits. Maya tried to be understanding. She unpacked boxes alone. She hung pictures by herself, trying to make their apartment feel like a home. She cooked dinners that went cold, waiting for him to arrive. When he finally did come home, he was distant, distracting. He would eat in silence, scroll through his phone, then disappear into the bedroom claiming exhaustion. Their conversations became transactional. "Did you pay the electric bill? We need more coffee. Your mother called." There was no warmth, no curiosity about each other's days, no laughter. The man who had once asked her about her dreams now seemed barely interested in her daily reality. Maya tried to initiate connection. She suggested date nights. She tried to cuddle on the couch during movies. She initiated sex, hoping physical intimacy might rebuild emotional intimacy. But Lucas always had an excuse. He was tired. He had an early morning. He wasn't in the mood. He had a headache. His rejections, though polite, cut deeper each time. Then the secrecy intensified. Lucas changed his phone password without telling her. He started closing doors when he took calls. He created a separate email account that he accessed only on his laptop, angling the screen away whenever Maya walked by. When she asked what he was working on, his answers were vague. Just business stuff, nothing interesting. You wouldn't understand the technical aspect. The implication that she wasn't smart enough to grasp his work stung, but Maya didn't push back. She was afraid of what pushing might reveal. The defensiveness was new, too. If Maya asked where he had been, he accused her of being controlling. If she mentioned feeling lonely, he told her she was being dramatic. If she expressed any concern, any doubt, any need, he made her feel like the problem, like she was too needy, too suspicious, too much. He had a way of turning every conversation around until Maya was apologizing for bringing up her feelings in the first place. Maya started second-guessing everything. Was she being unreasonable? Was this just what marriage looked like after the honeymoon phase ended? Were her expectations too high? She tried to talk to her best friend Emma, but found herself downplaying the issues, making excuses for Lucas even as doubt ate away at her from the inside. Emma seemed skeptical, asking pointed questions about whether Maya was really happy. But Maya couldn't admit the truth out loud, saying it would make it real. So she smiled and said everything was fine, just an adjustment period. All couples went through this. But things weren't fine. They were deteriorating rapidly. Lucas became someone Maya didn't recognize. He snapped at her over minor things. He criticized her cooking, her appearance, the way she organized the apartment. He made her feel like she could do nothing right. And then, hours later, he would apologize and be sweet again, buying her flowers or suggesting they watch a movie together. The cycle was dizzying. Maya never knew which version of Lucas she would get, the loving husband or the cold stranger. 4 months into their marriage, things came to a head. It was a Thursday night. Lucas had promised to be home for dinner. Maya had cooked his favorite meal, garlic butter shrimp with pasta. The dish he always said reminded him of their honeymoon. She had set the table with candles, put on a dress he once said he loved. She was trying, desperately trying to salvage what they had, trying to remind him why he had married her in the first place. But 7 o'clock came and went, then 8, then 9. No text, no call, no explanation. By 10, Maya was pacing their apartment, torn between worry and anger. She called him twice. Both times it went straight to voicemail. She texted asking if he was okay. No response. She imagined car accidents, medical emergencies, all the terrible things that could keep someone from contacting their spouse. But deep down, she knew. She knew it wasn't an emergency. It was something else, something worse. When Lucas finally walked in at 10:45, he smelled like perfume. Not Maya's perfume, something floral and expensive and unfamiliar. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair mussed. There was lipstick on his collar, a small smudge of mauve, barely visible in the dim light unless you were looking for it. But Maya was looking. She was always looking now, searching for evidence of the betrayal she could feel but couldn't prove. She asked where he had been. He said work drinks with clients. His tone was casual, unbothered, like coming home 3 hours late without calling was perfectly normal. She asked why he hadn't called. He said his phone had died. She pointed to the lipstick on his collar. He looked down at it, and for just a moment panic flashed across his face. Real, genuine panic. Then he laughed. He told her one of the clients was a hugger, a middle-aged woman who wore too much makeup and didn't understand personal space. He said it was nothing. He called her paranoid. He asked if she was really going to ruin the evening with baseless accusations. He asked if she had nothing better to do than wait up for him like a suspicious, nagging wife. And somehow Maya found herself apologizing for being paranoid, for not trusting him, for ruining the evening she had worked so hard to create. She scraped the cold pasta into the trash while Lucas showered, washing away the evidence of wherever he had been, whatever he had done. That night, lying in bed beside him, listening to him snore while she stared at the ceiling, Maya realized something had broken. Maybe it had been breaking all along. Maybe she had been too afraid to see it, but she couldn't keep living like this, couldn't keep swallowing her doubts and her hurt and her anger. Something had to change. The next morning, over coffee that tasted like ash, Maya told Lucas they needed help. She said their marriage was falling apart and she didn't know how to fix it alone. She told him she loved him, but that love wasn't enough if he wasn't willing to fight for them too. She asked him to go to therapy with her, to talk to someone who could help them navigate whatever was going wrong, to prove that he still wanted this, that he still wanted her. Lucas was quiet for a long time. He stared into his coffee cup like it might contain answers. Then he said he didn't believe in therapy. He said talking to strangers about private matters felt wrong, weak. He said they should be able to figure this out themselves. Maya pushed back, her voice shaking with emotion.
She told him they clearly couldn't figure it out themselves.
She said if he loved her, if he valued their marriage, if he wanted any chance of them surviving, he would try. She told him she was drowning and he was refusing to throw her a lifeline. Eventually, Lucas agreed, but with a condition. He said he would go to therapy, but alone first. He claimed he needed to work on himself before they could work on them together, that his issues were his to resolve, and once he did that, they could do couples counseling. Maya didn't love this idea, but she was desperate. Desperate enough to agree to anything if it meant there was still hope. So she said yes. She said she would wait. She said she believed in him. Lucas found a therapist within days. Dr. Celine Ward, licensed clinical psychologist, specializing in relationships, life transitions, and personal growth. Her website photo showed a woman in her mid-30s with dark hair pulled back in a professional bun, kind eyes, and a calm smile. Her credentials were impressive: a doctorate from a prestigious university, years of experience. Her reviews were glowing. Former clients praised her insight, her compassion, her ability to help them transform their lives. Maya felt cautiously optimistic. Maybe this would help. Maybe professional guidance would show Lucas what he was losing. Maybe they could still save this. Lucas started seeing Dr. Ward twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Sessions were an hour long, scheduled for 6 o'clock. Lucas always left work early on those days, which surprised Maya. He could never leave work early for her, for their dinner plans or anniversary celebrations, but for therapy, he made time. She tried not to be bitter about that, tried to see it as a good sign, evidence that he was taking this seriously. After his first session, Lucas came home energized. He said Dr. Ward was good, really good, that she asked hard questions and didn't let him deflect. He said it was productive, that he could already feel it helping. Maya felt a flutter of hope. Maybe this would work. Maybe they would be okay. But over the next few weeks, something shifted. Lucas came home from his sessions happier, more energized. But that energy was never directed at Maya. He would breeze past her, go straight to his phone, text someone with a small smile on his face. When she asked who he was talking to, he said just a friend from work. When she asked how therapy was going, he said it was productive but private. He refused to share anything about his sessions, claiming therapy only worked if it remained completely confidential. When Maya suggested she join a session, Lucas became agitated. He told her he wasn't ready for that. He said she needed to respect his process, that pushing him would only make things worse. There were other changes, too. Lucas started dressing better for his therapy appointments. Nice shirts instead of his usual work casual, cologne. He spent longer grooming beforehand, styling his hair, checking his reflection. Maya noticed but didn't comment. Maybe Dr. Ward's office was in a professional building where appearance mattered. Maybe Lucas was just taking pride in himself again, which was good. She was reaching for any positive interpretation, any explanation that didn't confirm her growing suspicions. 6 weeks into therapy, things got worse instead of better. Lucas became even more secretive. He started going out after his Thursday sessions, claiming he needed time to decompress. He would come home at 10 or 11, offering no explanation beyond needing space. The distance between them grew into a chasm. They barely spoke. They never touched. They were roommates sharing space, not spouses sharing a life. Maya tried to hold on to hope. She told herself healing wasn't linear, that sometimes things got worse before they got better, that Lucas was working through deep issues and she needed to be patient. But patience was becoming indistinguishable from denial. One evening, about 2 months into Lucas's therapy, Maya decided to drop by his office after his Thursday session. She wanted to surprise him, to see if maybe they could grab a late dinner together, reconnect. She had called his office earlier, and his assistant said he had left at 5:30 for his appointment. His appointments were at 6 and lasted an hour, so by 7:30 he should be done. She arrived at the building where Dr. Ward's office was located, a modern structure downtown, all glass and steel. Professional. Impressive. She checked the directory. Dr. Celine Ward, 3rd floor, suite 304. Maya took the elevator up, her heart pounding with nervous anticipation. Maybe this was a bad idea. Maybe Lucas would be upset that she had shown up unannounced. But she missed him, missed them. She needed to do something, anything, to bridge the gap between them. The 3rd floor hallway was quiet. Most offices were closed for the evening, but light shone from under the door of suite 304. Maya approached slowly, not wanting to interrupt if the session was still going. She would wait in the hallway, surprise him when he came out. She stood there, checking her phone, preparing what she would say. Then she heard laughter. Female laughter, low and intimate, coming from inside the office. Then Lucas's voice, muffled but unmistakable. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was warm, playful, not at all the serious therapeutic tone she would expect. Maya told herself it was nothing. Maybe the session was ending on a light note. Maybe Dr. Ward used humor in her practice. But then she heard something else, a sound that made her blood run cold, a moan, soft but distinct, and then silence, thick, loaded silence. Maya's hand moved to the door handle before her brain could stop her. She turned it slowly. The door was unlocked. She pushed it open just a crack. Through the narrow opening she could see them, Lucas and a woman who must be Dr. Ward. They were standing close, too close. Dr. Ward's hand was on Lucas's chest. His hand was on her web. They were looking at each other with an intensity that was impossible to misinterpret. And then, as Maya watched in frozen horror, they kissed. Not a peck, a real kiss. Deep and passionate and full of the heat that had been missing from Maya's marriage for months. Maya closed the door silently and backed away. Her hands were shaking, her heart was racing. She made it to the elevator, down to the lobby, out to her car. She sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what she had just seen. Her husband was kissing his therapist. The woman who was supposed to be helping him save his marriage was actively destroying it. Everything made sense now. The secrecy, the improved mood, the new clothes and cologne. Lucas wasn't getting better, he was having an affair. Maya drove home on autopilot. She walked into their apartment and went straight to the bedroom. She pulled out Lucas's dresser drawers, his closet, looking for more evidence. She found a receipt in his jacket pocket from a hotel restaurant, dinner for two, 3 weeks ago, when he claimed he was working layered. She found a gift receipt for jewelry she had never received. She found everything she needed to confirm what she already knew. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She just asked him if he was sleeping with his therapist. Lucas opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He said it wasn't what she thought. She asked him to explain what it was then. He said they had connected, that Dr. Ward understood him in ways Maya never had, that it had started innocently but evolved into something more. He said he never meant to hurt her, that he was confused and trying to figure things out. Maya listened to all of it, every excuse, every justification, every attempt to minimize what he had done. And when he was finished, she told him to get out. He asked if they could talk about this. She said there was nothing to talk about. He had taken the money she contributed to their joint account and used it to wine and dine another woman. He had lied to her face for months. He had betrayed their marriage vows with the person who was supposed to help. There was nothing left to discuss. Lucas left that night. He packed a bag and walked out, and Maya was alone with the ruins of her marriage. She didn't sleep. She sat on the couch until dawn, numb and empty and broken. When morning came, she called a divorce lawyer. But the story didn't end there, because 2 weeks later, Maya got a call from an unknown number. She answered, and a woman's voice identified herself as Dr. Celine Ward. Maya almost hung up, but then Dr. Ward said something that made her freeze. She said she was calling because she thought Maya deserved to know the truth, the whole truth. Dr. Ward said she was pregnant, 8 weeks along. The baby was Lucas's. She said she hadn't meant for any of this to happen, that she knew she had violated every ethical boundary of her profession, that she was losing her license, her practice, everything. But she couldn't let Maya divorce Lucas without knowing there was a child involved. She said she wasn't asking Maya to stay with him. She just thought Maya deserved complete information before making decisions about her future. Maya thanked her for the call and hung up. She sat in stunned silence. Lucas hadn't just betrayed her. He had created a whole new life with someone else, a baby. Something Maya had wanted to discuss with him, but he had always deflected, saying they had time, they should wait, they weren't ready. He wasn't ready for a child with Maya. But apparently he was fine having one with his therapist. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Lucas tried to fight for a reconciliation. He sent flowers. He sent long text messages about how sorry he was, how he had made a terrible mistake, how he wanted to make things right. But Maya was done. She couldn't unhear Dr. Ward's voice telling her about the pregnancy, couldn't unsee Lucas kissing another woman in that office, couldn't forgive the months of lies and manipulation. 5 months after filing for divorce, it was finalized. Maya got to keep most of their shared assets. Lucas didn't fight her on it, perhaps out of guilt, perhaps just wanting it to be over. She moved into a smaller apartment across town, away from all the memories. She threw herself into her work, taking on more clients than she could reasonably handle, using exhaustion as an anesthetic against the pain. Her friends and family rallied around her. Emma came over almost every night those first few weeks, bringing takeout and wine and her presence. Maya's sister flew in for a weekend, helping her unpack and settle into the new place. Her mother called daily, offering words of comfort that sometimes helped and sometimes made things worse. Everyone told her she was strong, that she would get through this, that she deserved better. Maya nodded and smiled and said all the right things, but inside she felt hollowed out, like Lucas had taken something essential when he left and she would never get it back. 6 months passed, then 9. Slowly, painfully, Maya started to rebuild. She went to therapy herself with a kind older woman named Dr. Patricia Chen, who specialized in trauma and betrayal. Dr. Chen helped Maya understand that what had happened wasn't her fault, that she hadn't failed at marriage, that Lucas had failed her, that recognizing red flags and choosing to trust someone anyway wasn't weakness, it was an act of love. The fact that Lucas had betrayed that love said everything about him and nothing about her worth. Dr. Chen helped her work through the shame that clung to her like a second skin, the shame of being the wife who didn't see it coming, the one whose husband impregnated his therapist, the one who everyone pitied. Maya learned to separate her identity from her failed marriage, to see herself as complete and valuable on her own, not half of a broken whole. She started doing things she had stopped doing during her marriage. She took a pottery class and discovered she was terrible at it but enjoyed it anyway. She joined a book club and actually finished the monthly selections. She went on weekend hikes with Emma, pushing her body until her mind went quiet. She learned to cook new dishes, trying recipes that Lucas would have criticized. She redecorated her apartment in colors she loved, hanging art that spoke to her, creating a space that was entirely hers. Nearly a year after her divorce was finalized, Maya went to an art gallery opening. Her friend Emma was exhibiting her photography, and Maya had promised to be there. She almost didn't go. The thought of making small talk with strangers felt exhausting, and she had a portfolio deadline looming. But she had made a promise, and she was trying to be the kind of person who kept promises again. So she put on a dress that made her feel confident, did her makeup, and went. The gallery was crowded, full of people admiring Emma's work, black and white photographs that captured raw emotion in everyday moments. Maya moved through the space slowly, studying each image. She stopped in front of a photograph of a woman laughing, her head thrown back, pure joy captured in the curve of her smile and the crinkle around her eyes. It was beautiful, unguarded, real. A voice beside her commented on the photograph, saying it captured what we all hope to feel more often, uninhibited happiness. Maya turned to see who had spoken. A man stood next to her, tall with kind eyes and an easy smile. He wore jeans and a sweater that looked comfortable rather than trying too hard. There was something immediately approachable about him, something that made Maya feel at ease rather than on guard. They started talking about art, about Emma's work, about how hard it was to capture authentic emotion in photography, how most people's faces changed the moment they knew a camera was pointed at them. The conversation flowed naturally, without the performance Maya had grown so tired of. He listened when she spoke. He asked follow-up questions that showed he was actually interested, not just waiting for his turn to talk. He shared his own thoughts without dominating the conversation or making it about himself. When Emma found them an hour later still talking, she looked between them with barely concealed delight. She introduced them properly, her eyes twinkling with matchmaker satisfaction. David asked if Maya wanted to grab coffee sometime. Not dinner, not drinks, just coffee. Low pressure, no expectations. Maya hesitated for just a moment. Her instinct was to say no, to protect herself, to avoid the risk of being hurt again. But something about David felt different, safe. So she surprised herself by saying yes. Their first coffee date turned into a 3-hour conversation at a quiet cafe where the barista had to politely tell them they were closing. David was easy to talk to in a way that felt refreshing after years of walking on eggshells. He asked about her work, and when she explained a project she was passionate about, he didn't glaze over or change the subject. He engaged. He asked smart questions. He understood what she was trying to achieve. When she mentioned she was divorced, he didn't pry. He just nodded and said relationships could be complicated. He shared that he had been in a serious relationship that ended a few years ago, that he understood how hard it was to trust again after being hurt. Their second date was a walk through the botanical garden. It was a crisp Saturday afternoon, the kind of fall day where the air smells like earth and possibility. They talked about everything: childhood dreams, favorite books, what they wanted from life. David told her about growing up in a big family, the youngest of 4 siblings, about how he had always loved building things even as a kid with Legos and cardboard boxes, about studying architecture because he wanted to create spaces where people could feel at home. There was something genuine about the way he spoke. No pretense, no performance, just honesty. Maya found herself sharing things she rarely told anyone, about her parents' quiet marriage, about how she had always felt like she was too much or not enough, never quite right, about her fear that she was somehow defective, that she would never be capable of maintaining a healthy relationship. David listened to all of it without judgment. He told her that her ex-husband's inability to appreciate her said everything about him and nothing about her value. That the right person wouldn't make her feel like she needed to shrink herself to be loved. Their third date was dinner at a small Thai restaurant that David loved. The food was incredible, spicy and complex and perfectly balanced. They shared dishes, passing plates back and forth, and Maya realized how comfortable she felt. There was no tension, no walking on eggshells, no trying to be someone she wasn't. David made her laugh with stories about architectural disasters he had witnessed, about the client who wanted a house with no right angles because they believed corners trapped negative energy, about the time a contractor installed all the toilets facing the wrong direction and didn't realize until the final walkthrough. After dinner, they walked through the city, and somewhere along the way, David took her hand. It was such a simple gesture, but it made Maya's heart race, not with anxiety or fear, with something that felt like hope. When he walked her to her car, he kissed her, soft and gentle and asking rather than demanding. Maya kissed him back and felt something inside her start to heal. They started seeing each other regularly after that. Once a week became twice a week, became most days. David integrated into Maya's life seamlessly. He got along with Emma and her other friends. He was polite and warm when he met her parents. He respected her boundaries without making her feel like she was too damaged or too difficult. When Maya had bad days, when the trauma of her marriage reared its head and she spiraled into doubt, David was patient. He reassured her without dismissing her feelings. He reminded her that healing wasn't linear and that he wasn't going anywhere. David was different from Lucas in every way that mattered. He was consistent. When he said he would call, he called. When he made plans, he kept them. He never played games or made Maya guess where she stood. He was open with his phone, his schedule, his life, not because Maya asked him to be, but because he had nothing to hide. He introduced her to his friends and family early on, proud to have her by his side rather than keeping her compartmentalized. His sister joked that she had never seen David so smitten. His mother told Maya she was good for him, that he smiled more when she was around. Most importantly, David made Maya feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally. She could be vulnerable with him without fear of it being used against her later. She could express needs and concerns without being called dramatic or needy. She could be herself fully and completely, and he loved her for it rather than despite it. He celebrated her successes and supported her through bad days. He never made her feel like an inconvenience or a burden. 3 months into their relationship, David invited Maya to meet his family for Sunday dinner. It was a big deal, he explained. His family did Sunday dinners every week, and bringing someone meant you were serious about them. Maya was nervous but touched. Lucas had kept her separate from most of his life. Meeting his parents had been a formal, stilted affair, but David's family welcomed her warmly. His mother hugged her at the door. His father asked about her work with genuine interest. His siblings teased David mercilessly about finally bringing someone home, making Maya laugh until her cheeks hurt. Sitting around the Reed family dining table, surrounded by warmth and laughter and the kind of easy affection that came from years of love and trust, Maya felt something shift inside her. This was what family was supposed to feel like, what love was supposed to feel like. Not performance or pretense, but genuine connection. She looked at David across the table, caught his eye, and smiled. He smiled back, and in that moment Maya knew this was real. This was right. This was what she had been searching for all along. As their relationship deepened, Maya found herself falling in love in a way that felt completely different from what she had experienced with Lucas. With Lucas, love had felt urgent and anxious, a desperate need to hold on before it slipped away. With David, love felt steady, certain, like coming home after a long journey. She didn't have to wonder how he felt. He showed her every day through 1,000 small actions. The way he made her coffee in the morning without asking how she took it, because he had paid attention and remembered. The way he texted her random thoughts throughout the day just to make her smile. The way he listened when she talked about work struggles and offered support without trying to fix everything for her. 6 months into their relationship, Maya realized she was ready to fully let go of her past. She had been holding on to anger at Lucas, at Dr. Ward, at the situation that had destroyed her first marriage. But that anger was only hurting her now. It was time to release it, not for Lucas's sake, but for her own. She talked about it in therapy with Dr. Jen, who helped her work through the complex emotions. Forgiveness didn't mean what Lucas did was okay. It meant she was choosing not to let his actions define her future. One evening, as she was leaving Dr. Chen's office, Maya ran into someone unexpected. A woman with a baby carrier strapped to her chest, a tiny infant sleeping peacefully inside. The woman looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. It took Maya a moment to recognize her. Dr. Celine Ward. They stared at each other for a long moment. Maya felt a surge of emotions, anger, hurt, curiosity, but underneath it all something unexpected, pity. Dr. Ward looked miserable. The consequences of her actions were written all over her face. She had lost her license, her practice, her reputation, and now she was a single mother because from what Maya had heard through mutual acquaintances, Lucas had left when the baby was 2 months old. Apparently, fatherhood wasn't as appealing in reality as it had been in theory. Dr. Ward spoke first. She said she was sorry, that she knew sorry wasn't enough, but she needed to say it anyway. She said she had been in therapy herself, trying to understand how she had violated every ethical principle she once held sacred. She said she didn't expect Maya's forgiveness, but she wanted her to know that she recognized the magnitude of what she had done. Maya looked at the sleeping baby. innocent and unaware of the circumstances of its creation. She told Dr. Ward she hoped she was getting the help she needed, that the baby deserved a mother who was whole and healthy. And then she walked away. She didn't offer forgiveness. She wasn't there yet. But she didn't feel the burning rage she once had either. She just felt sad for everyone involved, for the mess that people make when they choose selfishness over integrity, for the innocent casualties of adult decisions. When Maya told David about the encounter later that night, he held her while she processed her feelings. He didn't tell her how she should feel. He didn't minimize her pain or rush her healing. He just held her and listened and reminded her that she was allowed to feel whatever she felt, that there was no right way to handle running into your ex-husband's pregnant mistress. Maya laughed at that, a watery sound between tears and relief, and loved David even more for understanding exactly what she needed. 8 months into their relationship, David asked Maya to move in with him. He had been looking for a new place, something bigger than his current apartment. He asked if she wanted to look together, to find something that could be theirs. Maya's first instinct was fear. Moving in together felt huge, permanent. What if it didn't work? What if she made another mistake? But then she looked at David, at the hope and love in his eyes, and realized her fear wasn't about him. It was about her past, and she couldn't let Lucas's betrayal dictate her future happiness. They found a beautiful loft in a converted warehouse building, exposed brick and high ceilings and huge windows that let in floods of natural light. It felt like a fresh start, a space with no memories of either of their pasts, just potential for their future. They moved in together on a sunny Saturday in May, with help from friends and parents. Emma joked that she had never seen Maya so happy. David's brother said it was about time David found someone who could put up with his obsessive organization. Maya stood in the middle of their new living room, surrounded by boxes and people she loved, and felt profoundly grateful. Grateful for the second chance she never thought she would get. Grateful for meeting someone who treated love like a verb rather than just a feeling. Life with David was everything life with Lucas hadn't been. They were partners in the truest sense. They split chores fairly. They made decisions together. They supported each other's careers without competition or resentment. When Maya had a big project deadline and needed to work late, David cooked dinner and brought it to her desk. When David was stressed about a difficult client, Maya listened and offered perspective without trying to solve everything for him. They had disagreements, of course, but they argued with respect. They listened to each other. They apologized when they were wrong and compromised when they disagreed. Every day, Maya was amazed by how different healthy love felt from what she had experienced before. One evening, about 10 months into living together, Maya and David were cooking dinner side by side. He was chopping vegetables while she stirred pasta sauce, and they were having a ridiculous debate about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. David was arguing passionately for the affirmative, making Maya laugh with increasingly absurd justifications. She paused, wooden spoon in hand, and just watched him. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. The way he gestured animatedly with the knife, making her warn him to be careful before he cut himself. The easy, comfortable intimacy of sharing space with someone who felt like home. David noticed her staring and asked if she was okay. She told him she was more than okay. She told him she was exactly where she was supposed to be, that she had never imagined she could feel this secure, this loved, this fundamentally happy. David set down his knife and crossed to her. He took her face in his hands, gently, reverently, like she was something precious that needed to be handled with care. He told her he loved her, that he had loved her for months but had been waiting for the right moment to say it, that there would never be a perfect moment, so he was just saying it now. He told her she was the best thing that had ever happened to him, that watching her heal and grow and learn to trust again had been the greatest privilege of his life, that he wanted to spend every day for the rest of his life making her as happy as she made him. Maya kissed him, deep and long and full of everything she couldn't put into words. When they finally broke apart, she told him she loved him too. That she had been afraid to fall in love again, terrified that she would make the same mistakes, that she would choose wrong again and end up broken. But loving David didn't feel like falling. It felt like building something solid and real. It felt like choosing herself by choosing someone who genuinely valued her. It felt like home. They stood in their kitchen holding each other while the pasta boiled over and the smoke alarm went off, and they laughed and scrambled to salvage Dearings. It was chaotic and imperfect and absolutely perfect all at once. This was what love was supposed to be, not the fairy tale perfection of a honeymoon phase, but the real, messy, beautiful work of two people choosing each other every single day. A year after moving in together, David proposed. They were on a weekend trip to a small cabin by a lake, one of those last-minute getaways they had gotten good at planning. It was early morning. Maya was sitting on the dock with her coffee, watching mist rise off the water, when David came out and sat beside her. He was quiet for a moment, just holding his own coffee and watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Then he told her he had been thinking a lot about the future, about what he wanted his life to look like, and every version he imagined included her. He said she had taught him what it meant to truly show up for someone, to love them not just in the easy moments but through the hard ones. He said watching her rebuild herself after everything she had been through had made him want to be a man worthy of her trust and her love. He pulled out a ring. Nothing flashy, a simple diamond on a delicate band that was so perfectly Maya's style it made her eyes well with tears. He told her he wanted to spend every day of the rest of his life making her happy, that he wanted to build a family with her, a home with her, a whole life with her. He promised to never take her for granted, to always choose her even when things got hard, to love her the way she deserved to be loved, completely, faithfully, forever. Maya said yes, without hesitation, without the nagging doubt that had accompanied her acceptance of Lucas's proposal, without the voice in her head warning her that something was off. She said yes because this felt right in every possible way, because David had proven day after day that he was someone she could trust with her heart, because loving him felt safe and exciting and real all at once. They got married 6 months later, a small ceremony on the beach where they had taken their first weekend trip together. Just family and close friends. Maya wore a simple white dress that made her feel beautiful without trying to be someone she wasn't. David cried when she walked toward him across the sand, and this time the tears felt like joy rather than performance. They exchanged vows they had written themselves. Maya promised to love him with her whole heart, to trust him even when fear crept in, to build a life with him based on honesty and respect and genuine partnership. David promised to always make her feel safe, to celebrate her strengths and support her through weaknesses, to choose her every single day for the rest of his life. As they kissed to seal their marriage, Maya felt a sense of peace she had never experienced before. This wasn't just hope or optimism or desperate belief. This was certainty. Knowledge deep in her bones that she had made the right choice, that this man standing before her, holding her hands and looking at her like she hung the moon, would never betray her, would never make her feel small or unwanted or less than, would spend every day proving that she was cherished. The reception was filled with laughter and dancing and speeches that made everyone cry. Emma gave a toast about watching Maya transform from someone broken into someone whole again, about how David hadn't fixed Maya because she didn't need fixing, but how he had loved her while she fixed herself. David's father gave a toast about finding a partner who makes you want to be your best self. Maya's mother cried happy tears and told her she had never seen her daughter glow the way she did when she looked at David. As the evening wound down and Maya and David swayed together on the dance floor, she thought about everything that had led to this moment. The pain of her first marriage, the betrayal that had shattered her, the long, difficult process of putting herself back together. She thought about Lucas and Dr. Ward and the baby that existed because of their selfishness. She thought about the woman she had been when she met Lucas, so eager to be loved that she ignored every warning sign, so afraid of being alone that she chose the wrong person just to avoid solitude. That woman seemed like a stranger now, someone Maya barely recognized. The woman she was now knew her worth, knew that being alone was infinitely better than being with someone who made you feel lonely, knew that real love didn't require you to shrink yourself or ignore your instincts or accept betrayal in the name of commitment. Knew that she deserved genuine love, and she didn't have to settle for anything less. Sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep, Maya wondered what would have happened if she had stayed with Lucas, if she had believed his promises to change, if she had given him another chance after catching him with Dr. Ward. She knew women who had stayed through worse, who had forgiven affairs and rebuilt marriages. Part of her wondered if she had given up too easily, if she should have fought harder. But then she would look at David sleeping beside her, his arm draped protectively across her waist even in sleep, and she knew. She knew that leaving Lucas was the best decision she had ever made. Not because he didn't deserve forgiveness, or because all affairs were unforgivable, but because his pattern of behavior had shown her exactly who he was. The lies, the manipulation, the complete disregard for her feelings, the willingness to use their joint money to fund his affair, the pregnancy that proved he was building a whole separate life while pretending to work on their marriage. Those weren't mistakes, they were choices. And people who make those choices don't suddenly become different people just because they get caught. David stirred beside her and mumbled something about her thinking too loud. She smiled and told him to go back to sleep. He pulled her closer and asked if she was okay. She told him she was perfect, that she was just thinking about how lucky she was. David kissed her forehead and told her he was the lucky one, that she had given him the gift of her trust after someone else had shattered it, that he would spend the rest of his life proving he was worthy of that trust. Maya closed her eyes and let herself sink into the warmth of his embrace. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, about how pain and betrayal had felt like the end of her story when they were really just the beginning of a new chapter, about how Lucas's betrayal, as devastating as it had been, had ultimately freed her to find someone who would love her the way she deserved, freed her to become the woman she was always meant to be, freed her to understand that happiness wasn't about finding someone to complete you, it was about being whole on your own, and choosing to share that wholeness with someone who valued it. 2 years into their marriage, Maya ran into Lucas. It was completely unexpected. She was at a coffee shop waiting for her order when she heard a familiar voice behind her. She turned, and there he was, Lucas Mercer, her ex-husband, the man who had broken her heart and changed the trajectory of her life. He looked older, tired. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He was holding a baby carrier with a toddler sleeping inside. Dr. Ward's baby, Maya assumed. Their baby. Lucas saw her at the same whim. His face cycled through emotions. Surprise, guilt, something that might have been regret. He said her name, just her name, like a question and an apology all at once. Maya felt remarkably calm. No racing heart, no surge of anger or pain, just a quiet sense of distance. This man was a stranger now, someone from a past life that felt like it had happened to someone else. She asked him how he was. He said he was okay, getting by. Things had been hard. He didn't elaborate, and Maya didn't ask. She glanced at the sleeping baby and said the child was beautiful. Lucas thanked her. An awkward silence stretched between them. Then Lucas told her he had heard she got married again, that he was happy for her. He said he hoped her new husband treated her better than he had, that she deserved someone who appreciated what he had been too stupid to value. Maya didn't know what to say to that. She settled on thanking him and telling him she hoped he was well, that she hoped he had grown from their experience, that she hoped he was being a good father. Lucas nodded, his eyes glistening slightly. He told her he was trying, that becoming a father had changed him, made him realize all the ways he had failed as a husband. He said he thought about her sometimes, about how badly he had messed up, about how he wished he could go back and do things differently. Maya told him there was no going back, only forward, that they had both moved on and that was how it should be. She told him she forgave him, not for his sake, but for her own, because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting him to die. She said she hoped he had learned from his mistakes and would do better in the future, for himself and for his child. The barista called Maya's name. Her order was ready. She told Lucas it was good to see him and wished him well. As she walked out of the coffee shop, David's favorite latte in one hand and her own coffee in the other, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gratitude that she had gotten out, that she had refused to accept scraps and called them love, that she had chosen herself even when it was terrifying, that she had opened her heart again despite every reason not to. She drove home to the life she had built, to the man who loved her completely, to the future that stretched ahead full of possibility and promise. She thought about the woman she had been when she met Lucas, so desperate for love, so willing to ignore red flags, so afraid of being alone. And she thought about the woman she was now, strong, whole, secure in her own worth, loved by someone who showed her every day what real partnership looked like. Lucas had taught her what she didn't want, what she wouldn't tolerate, what love should never look like, and in doing so he had inadvertently taught her what she deserved. He had broken her heart, yes, but in breaking she had learned how to put herself back together. And when David came along, he hadn't fixed her because she wasn't broken anymore. He had simply loved her, celebrated her, chosen her every single day. As Maya pulled into their driveway, she saw David through the window. He was in the kitchen, probably starting dinner. He looked up when he heard her car and smiled. That smile that had become her favorite sight in the world. The smile that said she was home and safe and loved. She grabbed the coffees and headed inside, ready for another evening of the simple, beautiful life they had built together. Ready for whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that she had a partner who would face it all beside her. Maya opened the door and called out that she had brought his favorite. David came around the corner, still wearing his work clothes, and pulled her into a hug. He thanked her for the coffee and asked about her day. She told him it had been good, that she had run into Lucas and it had been surprisingly okay, that she had felt nothing but peace and maybe a little pity. David held her closer and told her he was proud of her, proud of how far she had come, proud of the strength it took to forgive even when forgiveness wasn't deserved. They stood in their entryway holding each other while the coffee cooled in their hands, and Maya felt it again. That overwhelming sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was supposed to be, with exactly who she was supposed to be with. She thought about how betrayal hadn't broken her, how it had redirected her away from someone who would never value what he had, towards someone who understood exactly how precious love was and treated it accordingly. And she was grateful, grateful for the pain that had taught her what she deserved, grateful for the healing that had made her whole, grateful for the love that had shown her what real partnership looked like. This was her happy ending, not because she found a man to complete her, but because she had become complete on her own and found a man worthy of sharing that completeness with. Not because she had forgotten the pain of her past, but because she had learned from it and refused to let it define her future. Not because everything was perfect, but because the imperfections were faced together with honesty and respect and genuine love. This was her happy ending, and it was just the beginning. D. Reed, architect. Maya Patel, graphic designer. They shook hands formally despite having already been talking like old friends. His hand was warm, his grip firm but not aggressive. Maya felt something flutter in her chest, something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Not the desperate, anxious attraction she had felt with Lucas, but something calmer, steadier, like recognition. Davani.